course. No problem.
So this has been quite a semester. I thought last semester would be like the hardest one,
Hmm.
but this is getting me almost there. So we
I
did
believe
a
it.
project for the community engagement class,
Hmm.
and I chose homelessness because I think that's a huge
Hmm.
issue in Charlotte. Like we
Hmm.
can see that everywhere, right? So I was supposed to speak to somebody that has knowledge regarding the homeless population. So I
Hmm.
know you used to work um in a place that you used to administer like apartments for the homeless people. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
transitioning to stable housing. So I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to know the challenges of that.
yeah. I can tell you about it. So, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and therapist. I worked in homeless services for 8 years, 5 years as a case manager in a permanent supportive housing program, single site, and then for 3 years as a program manager, supervising case managers in a single site housing program. And it was housing first, permanent supportive housing, which meant people's housing wasn't contingent on adherence to medication regimens or sobriety. Yeah. And you want to know about the challenges in housing or the challenges in homelessness?
I'm homelessness, and they're getting houses. Like like
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Mhm.
like what would be the most difficult part for them to get to transition?
Yeah, so,
Mhm.
so so I think the hardest part is the whole thing.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So the number one, right, kind of the original sin is that there's no affordable housing in Charlotte, that the average person needs to make, whatever, $15 an hour to be able to afford the bare minimum for a single bedroom. And that's like, not really tenable. Um, a lot of folks see the thing about homelessness is that homelessness is different than most other populations, right? Because it's not like one single event that leads to your homelessness. Like everybody has like kind of a different path. So you get like mental health, you get substance use, you get developmental disability, you get all three, you get trauma, juvenile justice involvement, criminal justice involvement, all these different layers. So every person's path to housing is different. Generally, the process is very long and lengthy because there's about 3,600 to 3,400 people experiencing homelessness in Charlotte. Um, and there's like, I think less than 1,500 total like subsidized units, like in the whole program, like all the programs across all the agencies. I mean, that's a very, very rough estimate. It's probably a little lower. And that's permanent supportive, like single site where an agency owns the building and they get vouchers and they rent it out. That scattered site where they partner with landlords in the community to use vouchers and they rent them from people. But yeah, so generally the first step is they connect with street outreach, or they work with a housing specialist at the shelter. Street outreach works with people who are campers or live outside. And then, housing specialists work with people who are in the shelters. You do a thing called a permanent supportive housing application, which looks at all of your vulnerability factors. You do a thing called what's it called? Man, I forget the word. It's an intake. It's basically like a one-stop shop intake where they give, oh, coordinated entry. That's what it's called. And they give you a measure called the VI SPIDAT, which looks at your vulnerability. The higher the number, the more likely you are to die if you don't find housing. And
Wow.
then, there's like a whole system that's administrated by the county called the Permanent Supportive Housing kind of system. And they have meetings with representatives from all the different agencies, and they go through the list, the by name list, and they have priority pools. The top 20 is priority pool, like the priority pool. And then like the next like couple hundred is priority pool one, then you have priority pool two. Anyway, it's a lot of insider baseball. Anyway, it just takes a lot. because there's not a lot of resources. If we had more resources, it would be easier. Um, and then you have to have all sorts of documentation. You have to have birth certificate, social security card, proof of income, proof of lack of income. And the thing about it is that might not be a big deal, but imagine if you're living outside, you're getting arrested, you're sleeping in tents, you're getting wet, you're getting your stuff stolen. So those documents, those disappear. Those go missing literally all the time. So that's another huge piece is like getting all that documentation together.
Don't you think that also paying 3 times the rent up front is like an issue for homeless
Well,
people?
no, that's it's not that people have to make 3 times the rent. It's that the requirement for getting an apartment, right, is
Yes.
that you have 3 times the income. That means that if you want to rent a $1,200 apartment, you need to make 3,600 a month.
Yeah. So it's
And
not
these
like an issue for
folks,
people to get like approved for an apartment?
of course, because they're living outside, they don't have anywhere to take showers or brush their teeth. They don't have clean clothes. Could you imagine going to your job
Mhm.
if you couldn't shower or wash your clothes? How would you do it? Would you? You wouldn't, would you?
I was surprised to find out that many people who are homeless, they do have a job.
They do. And many people that are homeless do, and many people that are homeless don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, a whole lot of them don't. Many of them are on disability because they are disabled. In fact, kind of the majority of them are on disability because they can't work because of their physical and mental deterioration or, different things like that. And you know what disability pays?
Yeah.
Between 9 and 1,200. So unless you're trying to move into a $400 apartment,
Which
which
what
doesn't
is it?
exist, yeah, you're kind of stuck. Um,
So what would we say to somebody? Like I heard this before. Like my argument before this class may not be like that strong. Like what would you say to somebody that says, "Well, but they can go to work while they're on the street asking for money?"
you,
When like if you
well,
look
you
at
know
them,
what?
you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
tell like they're healthy. That's what we can think, but we don't know their mental
hmm
state.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say to someone who says, why can't they go to work? Why are they out there begging for money? I would say a couple things. One, a lot of the people who are panhandling at stop signs and traffic lights aren't homeless.
Mhm.
So that's one.
Yes.
Two, most folks who are experiencing homelessness have been determined to be disabled by the Social Security Administration, by the government. They've said these people are so sick, they don't have to work because they can't work. We're going to give them insurance. We're going to give them a check. And then two, I would say, wow, it sounds like you have some really strong thoughts about people experiencing homelessness. Have you ever talked with one? Have you ever met one? And I think it's very easy to have very strong opinions about people that we don't know.
Yes.
But when you actually meet these people and they're real people with real problems and real personality, it's really hard to like say, oh, well, they're just, you know, because it's not easy being homeless. That's the last thing I'd say is like being homeless is a full-time job because you are literally sleeping outside. You are literally don't have a place to use the bathroom, do laundry, make food. I mean, just imagine how far $900 a month goes on fast food because you don't have a refrigerator. So I think people just oversimplify it because they want to like make the people experiencing homelessness like somehow make it their fault. And I definitely think that like people make choices, but I also think different choices have different consequences for different people,
Yes.
you know? Like,
Yes.
so it's tough. It's tough. I always try to make sure that anyone I engage with around that, I make sure it's a good faith argument. They're not just trying to, you know, make me look stupid.
Um, I know that that's so hard because that can happen to anybody.
hmm
We had last year that hurricane. in the mountains.
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
imagine all those people that were, living on the farms and they have everything, and out of the blue, everything was taken away? Like,
Hmm.
I just said that to people, like, listen, just put yourself on those shoes. You know how difficult it is to have a baby? I mean, I know that. But, like, like having a baby on the car living with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to worry about people calling CPS on you, you know?
Exactly.
Right? And I mean
We
that's a
have
whole
things for
nother thing. Yeah. People really believe, you know, it is the great American lie, right? That everyone has an equal opportunity. And that is just not the way the world works. Different people have different opportunities, and that sucks. That's so bad. I really wish it wasn't like that. And it is like that. You know, the greatest predictor of success in our country is still the zip code where you were born. And that is a tragedy. So I think until we get more intentional with like things like restorative justice, um, diversity, equity, inclusion, these kind of core tenets and like really take a hard look at society. I mean, women make 25 cents
yeah.
less on the dollar than men, and that's white women,
Yeah,
you know. Latinx women, it's a different number that's lower. Um, Black women, it's lower too. So like it's not it's not just that simple, and people want to make it simple.
I was doing for this project also. I had like a goal. My goal was to um make about 10 to 20 kids to to distribute in the streets for the homeless people. Like, it's like personal items, like a toothbrush,
Hmm.
a toothpaste. Um, I almost have all of them, but I got it from my family.
Hmm.
Like, I just commented that to them because we're immigrants. We know how hard it can get in another
Of
place.
course.
So I got that from them, but it's like really difficult to get funds for a project, right? That's like a challenge that this population may have, like
Yeah.
resources from organizations or even the government.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's tough, right? It's interesting. Like after working in homeless services for 8 years, there's a few things I can tell you. There's plenty of hygiene items, food, socks, tents. Like there's lots of that stuff out there. We always need more,
Rita.
but there is a lot of that stuff out there. Now, is it food that's healthy? No. Because I bet I've been to 1,000, the food bank at least 800 times with clients, maybe 1,000. And I can tell you that the majority of the food there is canned goods,
Los de Dolce.
sugary things, and starchy things. Very few proteins, very few veggies, very few dairy. And it's just, we have like diabetes, we have people with immunocompromised systems, uh, people with cardiovascular issues, so yeah, yeah, I mean, resources are hard to come by. Um, it's a tough problem. And I think the bias is another problem because, this judgment comes into it. And I mean, and you definitely understand, right? I understand. Like these people are doing the best they can, and even if they're not, they're trying, right? Because we're all just trying, right?
Yeah,
Do I do the best I can every day? Hell no. Some days I get up and I'm like, maybe today, Satan. Like I'm like, maybe I don't have it to give. I'm gonna try, but I'm gonna try my middest.
yeah,
And that's okay. So people in homelessness are no different. And we get so preoccupied on that kind of fantasy of like the Will Smith blind side kind of like rise from adversity
yeah,
kind of narrative that is not the norm. The norm is that life is hard and it gets harder. And like a lot of these people grew up with childhood sexual trauma. A lot of them have very, very severe and persistent mental illness. It's poorly controlled by medication. And a lot of them are very deep in their addiction. And you put all that together, and you don't have a blind side. You don't have Will Smith, what was that movie he was in with the kid?
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, like one person can have the three of those.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Most folks can have the three of those. I mean, I would say if anything's a common through line, having done clinical work with hundreds of people experiencing homelessness, I would say it's childhood sexual trauma, leads to mental health problems, leads to substance use. Boom, boom, boom. And sprinkled in there, you have uh, issues with truancy and academia. You have criminal justice involvement, incarceration, and then you have hard time getting a job. And like I used to say in class, the system isn't broken. The system is functioning exactly in the way it was designed. It is designed to create haves and have-nots. And
Mhm.
once you get inside the system, they never want to let you out. They just don't. They never want to let you forget who you were and what you did. And the thing that's awful, the thing that's so terrible that I think is it doesn't even have to be on paper. People carry that feeling with them. It's like a stain. And like no matter how far out of it you get, you always feel like, oh man, these people in this interview can tell I used to use drugs. These people in this interview can tell that I grew up like I grew up poor white trash, right? Can tell that I grew up living in trailers and with roaches and pizza boxes and shit. But they can't. Nobody can tell that about you till you say it. But we carry that stain, we carry that stigma with us. And
That's
I think that is the hardest part about homelessness is convincing these people that they're no different than us. Because they're not. The only difference between you and a person sitting across from you is the desk. And people who are in homelessness, listen, we are all one medical emergency, one person running a red light and running into our car, one landlord selling a property away from being homeless.
yeah.
It just like that.
I'm telling you, any natural disaster, any
Yeah,
economic downturns, that the one that we're having now, anybody can
yeah,
lose the business. I mean, I wish nobody does, but that's something that can happen out of the blue. And yeah, and it's, as
yeah,
it's saying, we just need to change the chairs, the positions on the desk, and that'll be a different story for everybody.
absolutely.
Thank you for meeting me. But
Absolutely.
before I let you go, um, do you think of any policy or any solution for the homelessness?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that if we were to require developers to designate a certain portion of their housing as affordable housing when they do new construction, I think that would be a step in the right direction. The city of Charlotte actually has local ordinances forbidding the creation of that kind of law. It's either the city of Charlotte or the state of North Carolina. I forget which. Because in some cities, like larger cities, it's required. Like you have to have 20% affordable housing whenever you build a new complex. I think that would be a good step. I think, more access to mental health treatment, that's like useful mental health and substance use treatment, like co-occurring, um, because there's a lot of like infrastructure built up with like managed care and like
Hmm.
different agencies. And like we have so many people, kind of between the money and between the person who's getting served, so many offices, so many electric bills, so many paychecks that the money that trickles down to the people who actually need it is very little. And, we have these people in these companies, these managed care organizations, with all this infrastructure just soaking up all this money. And then I think like, insurance and pharmaceuticals, I think there's work to be done there. I think being able to negotiate for lower drug prices would be great because a lot of these folks have, um, either, they have psychosis, basically. They either have, um, why can't I remember the name? Sorry, I'm a little sleepy. It's the um Schizoaffective. Yeah, you see a lot of folks with schizoaffective or schizophrenia. And those need to be treated with antipsychotics. Plain and simple. You can't talk therapy your way out of psychosis. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I just think that, like, just speak with politicians regarding homelessness. The stigma is so big. Like, I don't think they want
Mhm.
to invest in people living on the streets. But if they invest in people, like in other policies, like immigration, like healthcare, mental health, housing, they don't have to invest money directly into the homelessness, but getting those out of the way, more people be house in house than on the
Right,
street.
right.
So
No,
yeah,
you're exactly right. Reducing the barriers, that's what it's all about.
that's what's wrong.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate you
Yeah,
interviewing me,
I
and
hope to see you again.
so good to be seen. And maybe I'll see you around campus next semester. And
Oh, you do.
again, my condolences on everything, and I hope you
Yeah,
have as good a trip as you can.
it's been, yes, I'll be back tomorrow. My flight's at 6 in the morning. But
Oh
yeah,
man.
it's been,
Well, good luck.
thank you so much. Thank you, Professor.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Bye.